The following episode is brought to you in part by Women in Motorsports North America, a community of professional women and men devoted to supporting opportunities for women across all disciplines of motorsport by creating an inclusive and resourceful environment to foster mentorship, advocacy, education, and growth, thereby ensuring the continued strength and successful future of our sport.
Get ready for an electrifying discussion as we bring together four of the most accomplished women in Trans Am and road racing. Cindy Lux, Michelle Abadi, Amy Ruman, and special guest Aaron Vogel for an exclusive panel diving into the highs, the challenges, the lows, and the evolution of women in motorsports. From the adrenaline-filled battles to the precision of road racing, they'll share their first-hand experiences and their insights on what it takes to compete at the highest levels. Normally, an episode of Break Fix will feature a deep dive into the personal history of our guest, but we're shaking things up this March. In honor of Women's History Month, we're setting our sights on the future of women in racing. Whether you're a diehard racing fan or just love hearing inspiring stories from Trailblazers, this month will feature panels of some of the fiercest talent from all areas of motorsport. Some names are already familiar to our listeners. Welcome back, Cindy Lux. But every one of our panelists today has an open invitation to return for an in-depth conversation about her road to success.
And with that, I'm Crew Chief Eric from the Motoring Podcast Network, along with Lauren Goodman from the Revs Institute, welcoming everyone to the International Motor Racing Research Center's virtual center conversation. Cindy, Michelle, Amy, and Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks.
Thank you. Hi.
For many of our listeners, depending on what decade you tuned into Trans Am for the first time, you might recall maybe three distinct eras in its history. Early days with superstars like Mark Donohue and the rise of Roger Penske, or the golden era of the 80s with Lynn St. James, Willie T. Ribbs, Hurley Haywood, and so many others, or maybe you're part of the next generation of Trans Am that kicked off with drivers like Tommy Kendall.
But what we'd like to do, since Erin isn't originally from Trans Am, but is part of road racing, let's start with her impressions from the outside looking in. And maybe by the end of the conversation, we might convince her to jump in a Trans Am car. So we'll kick off with you, Aaron. As we mentioned, you're no stranger to road racing and even race at some of the same venues as the rest of our panelists. But rather than the 700 plus horsepower Trans Am cars, you're piloting vehicles like the GT4, GT3 classes in the SRO World Challenge. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose road racing and your impressions of what Trans Am is like?
I chose road racing sort of by default, just because I started out as a track day enthusiast in Audis and BMWs. So the natural progression, I guess, at that time for me seemed like continuing with those cars that looked familiar. But I became aware of Trans Am through following Michelle Abate, who also started in either a BRZ or FRS, a GR86 platform car, which was what I had started out in. And then she took the move into Trans Am. And so I've been able to be at some of her races live and watch some of them on TV. And from the outside, it's a very exciting series. The noise alone that the cars make is thrilling, and it must be, something that fans just are drawn to. We're out here testing at Button Willow today, and there was a Trans Am car testing on the other track, and the sound is just fantastic.
Cindy, Amy, Michelle, why Trans Am rather than some other form of racing? Was it family involvement? Was it opportunity? What drew you into this variant of road racing?
As Aaron mentioned, I kind of started in club racing with SCCA. Actually, I started in autocross, worked my way up. But along my journey in club racing, I made a connection with a friend of mine who was running a GT1 car. His name's Tim Adolfson. He actually was just walking through the pits, and my husband and I were changing a fuel pump on my Scion because we were having issues. And we began to chat, and he invited us into his garage, and I was looking at his car, and I'm like, oh, it's like a NASCAR. Like I knew nothing about it. I really wrote it off. I was just like, oh, whatever. Like, that's not a production car, so I'm not really interested. I didn't know anything about the cars. Long story short, he basically wanted to get me into a GT1 car, and along that, he put me in a late model. So I was driving a late model in circle track at Irwindale for the NASCAR Whelen Series. He's like, you could drive it. I'm like, well, I've never done circle track, so I don't know if I'm going to be any good at this, and he had all this confidence in me after watching me for a few years. And with that, he built a GT1 car for me to campaign at the SCCA National Runoffs at Sonoma in 2018. Along that journey, I just completely fell in love with the tube chassis V8 platform. Like, I just was like, that is a race car. Like, I sold everything I owned to buy my TA2 car at the end of 2018 because I was just like, I don't want to do anything but drive these V8 tube chassis cars. I just was obsessed. Jokingly, I told him that he infected me. Like, I am now diseased because I don't want to drive anything else. And so in December of 2018, I purchased my TA2 car, which was very old. It was a 2013 TA2 car. I was just going to club race with it. We had to go to Texas to buy it. And so we had a very long drive home. My husband and I decided, let's just go do West Coast Trans Am. We've got the car. It's legal. It's going to cost us a little bit more money, but I felt so excited about the program. And I had also crewed for Tim Adelson for a few Trans Am events. So I was familiar with the paddock, and I was a little intimidated by the TA2 class because there's so many competitors and they're so just aggressive out there. You know what I mean? And it was, am I really going to go do this type thing? But I just absolutely love TA2. It just makes my heart beat. I just love Trans Am so much.
I raced a variety of other series before I kind of dipped my toe in Trans Am back in 2015. There was just a lot of uniqueness with that series at that time. And what really drew me was they're driving state-of-the-art racetracks. But more importantly, I just love the 100-mile or 90 minutes or 80 minutes or whatever it may be distance, because there's a lot more strategy than people kind of realize, trying to figure out more car setup for the long term, et cetera. But there's a little bit different aspects about the Trans Am, but it's also the community, and I'm sure Michelle and Amy, will attest to this. Aaron, you probably see it in the SRO as well. The paddock, it really is family. If somebody has a problem or something happens, everybody truly rallies. But there was something special about the Trans Am where I don't want to say it was blue collar type environment, but it was definitely more family, a little bit more hardcore racing. But they welcomed me with open arms. Plus, it was a great way, because of the multi-class aspect, which is a separate discussion in itself. It allowed us to basically run some Dodge Vipers for some clients and some folks and so forth, kind of travel around the country as well. So I think it's very unique. There's definitely some very unique aspects with Trans Am, much different from others. That's kind of what keyed me on it first.
So Amy, for you, it was family.
Yes, my experience is a little different because I grew up going to the track watching my father race in the Trans Am series. He started in the late 90s, early 2000s, basically as a privateer team against factory teams back then, when we had Ford and Chevy and all of them, and Tommy Kendall and Paul Gentilozzi and Greg Pickett and all those guys that my dad got to run against. So I grew up going there, witnessing all of that greatness all the time. And I was like, I'm doing this for sure. I just have to get my dad to sidestep and get a chance to get in there. And so my circumstance was a little different. I grew up around racing. We started off as just Corvette autocrossers, and then one day my dad wanted to buy a GT1 car and got into SCCA. And then from then on, it was Trans Am, Trans Am, Trans Am for us. And like Cindy, I drove a lot of different things before I got into Trans Am and GT1. And I second almost pretty much everything she said. It's a family community. We're an accessible paddock. We love fans. We love the people. We're at the premier tracks in America. It's the longest running road racing series in America. With all of that combined, I mean, to me, I drive a ground pounder, fast, loud, hot car. So, I mean, I just love it.
First, you and Cindy, what made you guys stay with Trans Am? Were you ever tempted to leave and go do maybe a different variant of road racing or a different discipline?
I always said if the opportunity presented itself, I wasn't going to say no, but it had to be the right fit for me. I talked to some Xfinity NASCAR style at the time after I won my championships, but it usually comes down to money, getting together that money and getting that to be the right package for me. I think for me, as a female aspect, I just don't want to run any car, because if it's not the right team or it's not the right crew, not the right fit, we're under the microscope. So next thing you know, oh, she's terrible. Like, she can run this, but she can't run that. And I feel like sometimes we're a little bit more held to a different standard. And so for me, it had to be the right fit. None of that really ever came together. Plus, I just really like doing it with my family. I mean, we're a family-based team. There's no one else I'd rather do it with personally. And without their support, I would not be where I am today. That's for sure.
I got to race, NASCAR Truck Series race, and it was more of an experience than something that I was striving for. I just really wanted to do it. And people are always like, oh, are you going to go to NASCAR next? And it's like, no, I really just want to race in Trans Am. You know what I mean? And so I think it's easy to get pushed in directions where people are trying to assume where you're going to go next. Even I had to ground myself and be like, you know what? I don't have to go do NASCAR. I can still just race Trans Am. You know what I mean?
It's kind of parallel, but somewhat different. My father raced. My two two brothers raced way back when, but never in the Trans Am series. But I kind of did the deal where I just wanted to try everything. I mean, I've done from circle track stuff to dirt to drag racing snowmobiles in the summer on alfalfa. It's crazy fields. Anyway, I mean, just everything, just to learn the different aspects. And I think that variety helped me in my career a little bit. But let me just tell you, I mean, as we chatted a long time ago, and Amy and I have known each other since, gosh, 1999, if not sooner, when we actually raced in another series together. You could have set a sundial by me. I was so bad the first couple of years. I mean, I think I was lapped on like lap 2 when I first started off. And I just made a commitment at that time to where, and it wasn't really a male-female thing, but it's just truly, this is really a cool art, me in the race car and the track, and that's it. And I just need to figure out what it's going to take to start hauling ass, per se. And it was good for me because I grew up in a family, basically on a ranch. And so I was very much hands-on in life, and just there's no excuses. But I kind of took a little bit different path, with my family, much different from Amy. And Amy and I laugh about this when we talk about this. My family was very supportive off the racetrack, but never really encouraged me to go racing. It wasn't until I kind of stole my dad's race or one of his cars off his dealership lots and kind of took it to a driving school and got in trouble. But anyway, but it was just kind of a calling. I kind of did a zigzag, versus maybe Amy was more straightforward a little bit. As long as we end up there, that's the main thing.
And Michelle, if you could help me and the audience understand a little bit about the way Trans Am currently operates, because there's a split between the National Series and the West Series. It means a lot of travel, from what I understand. So could you talk a little bit about the differences there and why there's a split?
I believe the West Coast was kind of brought on so it was a little more attainable. You know what I mean? There's a lot of West Coast racers that are doing great things, but they can't afford the National Series, and I was one of those. So the West Coast Series allowed me to dip my toe into the series. It allowed me to compete against 15 cars instead of 50 cars. And just to clarify, TA2 does run separately. So we have our own race, whereas like Amy and Cindy would be racing together on the track at the same time. Yeah, so the West Coast was like, I thought of it as a feeder series to the National Series. I just feel that the equipment isn't really as competitive, I guess, in a way. The talent is obviously not as high, but it's a great place to start and to get a feel for where you stack up and how you would do in a TA2 class. And what's really cool with that is there's a couple of crossover events where the West guys and girls will run with the national tour. And although you're scored separately, you do get to see where you stack up in the full field. So that was really cool too. For the first couple of years, I got to kind of have these two races in my season where I got to see where I was at with the national series, you know what I mean? And so whereas the national tour is, you've got to have so much funding to run the national tour, and it's so much more to take on, especially if you want to go for the full season. If I could give you numbers, it's probably a quarter of the cost to run West Coast as it is to run national tour. So it's significantly more affordable, and that's super appealing, and I think it's great for the sport. And alongside with that, National Series, as of last year, introduced a couple other championships within TA2 to help make it more attainable for running National Series. So they have like a pick 6, and then there's also a Pro-Am category. If you meet the requirements, you can run in Pro-Am, which I got to do that last year, which put me on the podium a few times. So that's something really cool with Trans Am. I kind of take both sides because I really loved the giant fields of TA2, like running with 40, 50 cars. But at the same time, I'm admittedly a mid-pack driver in the full field. So the Pro-Am category allowed me to have the opportunity to earn a podium position, which is great for sponsors and media and things like that. So I guess if I was a faster driver, I'd say, man, that's stupid they have that class. But really, with where I'm at with my talent, it's such a great opportunity to showcase my talent within a Pro-Am class and then have the opportunity to be on the podium, which I did a few times, which was pretty cool.
So Aaron, back to you. Let's talk a little bit more about comparing and contrasting SRO World Challenge to Trans Am in a way, because both have their feeder series, as everybody sort of alluded to. You either come from SCCA or maybe you come from NASA or one of the other organizations that builds up drivers for club racing, and then you go to the next rung, right? And that could be SRO, and then from SRO, maybe you feed into IMSA or something like Trans Am. With SRO, where do you set your sights? Are you thinking a different discipline? Is there long-term there for you?
For a lot of people, the goal from SRO would be, kind of this next step would be IMSA, and then probably the step after that would be WEC, the World Endurance Challenge, over in Europe, and eventually setting your sights on Le Mans. And sort of a lateral step that's really fun, I think, that a lot of people are doing these days is another one in Europe that's doing like the Dubai 24 hours and this 24 hours of Spa, and I'm blanking on the name of the series, but it's running some really great racing over there in GT4 and GT3 cars. cars. But yes, another place to get to SRO from, which is where I'm actually running a team last year and this year, is at WRL, where we're doing a lot of driver development.
For the listeners that are maybe thinking about this and Googling Trans Am right now and trying to figure out what have I been missing and how do I get into this and how do I learn more about it? Again, we're talking about feeder series. So if all of us had to start over again today, what's the best path to Trans Am? Is it through SCCA or is it through NASA and their programs? Because they do have their Thunder class and a bunch of other stuff that sort of leads up to the big horsepower cars.
I used both NASA and SCCA. I never drove an American muscle car in either of those, though. So, like, that wasn't the foray. I mean, you can also look at how NASCAR is now doing a lot more road racing than they used to. So you'll probably get appeal from the local circle track guys that are maybe looking to move to Xfinity or trying to move into ARCA and they want to get some road racing experience. You'll see them come to Trans Am. So, I mean, I can only speak from my experience, and I did come from NASA and SCCA. But then I had that circle track experience getting me into the two chassis car. So I really feel like you can come from anywhere. I don't think there's a specific ladder. And I think that's what's kind of cool about Trans Am is you've got kind of all types of drivers that make their way into the series.
Yeah, I mean, I would really agree with Michelle, but the thing is experience. They just got to get some seat time in other series, whether it's endurance, whether it's sprint. I think it's a pretty tough series to come up from a HPDE program or whatever it may be directly into this thing. So there's so many avenues out there now to get experience, and just get some seat time and just get some valuable coaching and just valuable experience. There's no bad track time. You learn something, whether it's good, bad, or in the different. So really no certain best path per se to get to the Trans Am. It really is. There's a variety, but seat time is seat time. And that's the key thing is getting some seat time, but don't come in as a rookie driver, relatively limited racing experience. And I think because you'll kind of get eaten up and not have fun and not enjoying yourself.
You mentioned the importance of seat time, that nothing can replace seat time when it comes to being a real competitor. You've had a storied career in Trans Am. Do you think drivers today are facing the same challenges you were facing getting seat time as when you were starting? Or do you think they're actually new challenges?
I think the world's changed and motorsports has changed, you know what I mean? And when I kind of started getting into it, there wasn't the world of sims, and sims are great to a certain extent, but it's not reality. It's not consequences for stuff in the wall or whatever it may be. But sims do help not only from engineering, not only for driver development, not only that has definitely changed a little bit recently. I say recently, probably within the last 10 to 12 years, but they still face the exact same thing that I faced. When I started off, bought my first race car, I slept in the tow rig. I was digging tires out of the garbage can when Hoosier or Goodyear was doing their tire changes at the track. I was going through there in the middle of the night trying to dig out tires. I couldn't afford anything, everybody has to start off someplace. Yes, it's expensive, but it's relative because it was expensive back then as well. And so I think, many facets, the industry has changed a little bit, but the bottom line is you got to have a desire, you got to have a passion, and you just got to just keep swinging the bat, as I like to say, and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And, there's days where and I tell people this, and again, I'm sure everybody, especially, Aaron and Amy and Michelle, the most relaxing time for me is when I put my helmet on and get inside the race car. I can get away from just for a minute of the business side or the team side. Even though I love them, don't get me wrong, but it's something where you work so hard to get yourself seated in that race car for that race weekend, and you just kind of take a deep breath and relax and go out and do a job and stuff. And so the world has changed a little bit, but the challenges still faced, but they're just a little bit different. But I just cannot impress upon it enough is just flat out seat time is the key for anything, whether it's dry, rain, dirt, endurance, sprint, everything. You learn something all the time. I just love it.
So with World Challenge, you're still driving production-based cars, but it's more like things you would identify with off, let's say, the dealership lot or off the showroom floor. We're talking Porsches, we're talking BMWs, and in some cases exotics like Ferraris. And occasionally you do see, Corvettes and so on as the rules allow for those cars. How do you feel in a mixed car environment that SRO and GT3 and GT4 works for you? Let's talk about balance of performance a little bit.
I find it fun. I enjoy racing against cars that have some differences. I've done some spec racing as well. I find it interesting to the strategy that I guess is involved in racing a car whose platform behaves differently and whose torque and horsepower is different. Is always a fun challenge to figure out, well, where is my car maybe a little stronger either in the chassis or the power delivery, and where are they at an advantage, and how do I work that to my advantage where, whereas they're trying to work it to their advantage as well. So I find that fun, and it's always a moving target. I think the balance of performance, because of how different all the cars can be. I think it makes it fun. They're trying to make it even like spec racing, so it should come down to the driver. It doesn't always, but I think it adds a really fun element for me.
Pose the question to Aaron about balance of performance, which actually sets us up for a deeper conversation about the more specifics about Trans Am as we go along here. Trans Am is really interesting because if we look at Michelle's car, right, tube frame TA2 Mustang with the Ghost livery and all that, and then Cindy's got the Viper, and Amy, you were running Corvettes. You're all running together. What was the balance of performance like, or is it like in Trans Am? How did this all get figured out?
I'll take that. Well, at first we were all together as, Trans Am had a tick of a lull there for a minute, and they resurrected the series back, and then they invented the TA2 and the other classes. So originally it was just the TA classes, what I drive, and then they added those other classes. It was TA2 and 3 and all that, and then they recategorized them as XGT and GT. And the draw to TA2 was so large that they split off to their own race group and then paired us in a multi-class format, similar to like an IMSA style and things like that. So the speed differences are very intense, could be intense at time for all of the parties involved. There's got to be a lot of paying attention going on because there's a lot of speed difference.
Cindy, you got the biggest displacement motor on track, hands down. How does the Viper still fit into this mix?
Yeah, but we got the biggest restrictor. It is. It's kind of what Amy was talking about. Every class has a different, what I call BOP, but it's really not. I mean, it's just like with Michelle's and Amy's class, it's not a spec, but they really do control it with different manufacturers and different nuances. But ours is a little bit more like Aaron's. We got so many different manufacturers, so many different models, so many different, aspects and so forth. So it really just comes down to the data, what it really shows on acceleration traces or longevity or, durability or fall off rate or whatever. So there's a little bit of trying to work with the officials, and they've been really good about it long term. But one of the biggest aspects for the BOP for Trans Am, it's just not outright speed on one lap. It really is figuring out the speed over the duration of the 100 miles. That to me is the creative part, and that's the challenging part. And that's the aspect that I truly love, is to have a race car there towards the end. To me, I love multi-class racing. I might be a minority on that, but to me, it just adds to the challenge and it adds to the complexity of the racing. I did a few ALMS races way back when, and I love the multi-aspect because you can almost use it to your advantage and in some cases disadvantage. But to me, it's just another level of challenge. That's all.
Aaron, you mentioned the goal, if you stay on your track, is Le Mans. And for Trans Am, there's other places that everybody can go and people that are coming from. It's a very interesting kind of collection of folks. And I'm wondering if there's been a bridge here in the last couple of years. Let's go back to 2023 with the Garage 56 car. This demonstration of not only just power and, American ingenuity and all these kinds of things, but it's a GT3 Camaro, a car that they stopped producing, that they never really made to begin with. It's that 7th generation NASCAR car. It can compete in road racing. It can compete on the oval. Could it compete in Trans Am? Is it a draw for people to come in to this discipline?
I think so. I think with the likes of different people that we have involved in Trans Am, we have Justin Marks, who's really almost hand-picking like all these different drivers and bringing them into NASCAR or different series. He runs in the TA class with us sometimes. You have a lot of these guys that are up and coming, younger drivers that you have some people sticking them into TA2 to get road racing experience so they can drive in NASCAR road races. And it's almost like everyone's kind of moving around and trying to get experience where they can, seat time. Our format, like Cindy says, is a unique format because we're just 100 miles, a sprint race. That's it. You got to get what you got to get done now. There's no pit stops. If you have a problem, then you're probably most likely out of it. And that's the end of it. So it takes all that other element out, and it basically boils down to the driver and the setup and the time. And so I think a lot of people are really noticing that, and the competition level is really tough. And I think you have a mix of newbies, you have a mix of champions, you have people coming back that were involved in the past and now they're back. So I think it's almost a rebirth in the last couple of years of just remaking it, but having to change with the times and involving XGTs and TA2s and TA, and then collectively bringing all these other people in and out of Trans Am.
Amy, I'm just going to jump on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're twice champion, 2015 and 2016.
Correct. Yes.
And you
thank
were the first woman to win 8 out of 12 races in a year.
Yes. I was the first woman to win a Trans Am race in the history of the series.
Well, that's pretty incredible. I imagine it's pretty meaningful to have that distinction. You know whereof you speak when you're talking about the different levels of competition. But you also spoke a little bit about the extra pressure you felt for performance if you really screwed it up. And one of the things you worried about moving to a different series, if it wasn't a good fit for you, is they wouldn't just say it about you as a driver, they might say it about all women as drivers. And I'm wondering if it's something you still feel or notice that other drivers also take on themselves and feel.
Coming up, I was younger then, and I think there's so many more doors open now for females and diversity and a lot of different programs. And I think people have more respect for it. I felt, I just wanted to prove myself that I belong there. And I just wanted to learn from pretty much everybody whoever was around me. I just tried to learn. I don't focus on the female aspect of it as much as the outer world does. I'm very proud of that. Don't get me wrong, but also it's not my main focus. Like, I'm just there to do a job. I'm just there to drive just like everyone else. And I just happen to be a female. To me, my accomplishments, I'm very proud of those. There's a lot of firsts in my career, so I'm definitely super proud to be carrying that banner, if you will. But at the end of the day, like, I'm just there like everyone else, trying to win, trying to get my name out there and have success for my team and my sponsors. So again, I don't focus on that, but it does, loom around you because we have to pay attention to those things. Otherwise, sometimes I think we are under the microscope a little bit more than others that had a bad day or a bad race. It's just not always there, but sometimes it is. But for the most part, I had pretty good experience with people respecting me. I mean, sometimes you get a little off color and like a little couple comments here and there, but for the most part, Trans Am community has always seemed to respect me, and I can't say anything really bad about that.
Did we address the fact that it was announced this week that Amy Ruman is being inducted in the inaugural Hall of Fame for Trans Am, the first group of 18 drivers? That's pretty huge. So I just want to say congratulations to my friend. Super proud of you, and it's well deserved, but I think there's going to be a big ceremony coming up at Sebring, and it's something where we need to really support her, but all the people. And yeah, it's a great group of 18 people, not necessarily drivers, but everything. But I just want to say, since Amy's on this show tonight, just congratulations, my friend. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I was super humbled when I got the news on that, and just so grateful for my experiences over the last decade. And it just, I just think, I have no words in a way to be standing up there with Roger Penske and Jack Roush and Paul Gentilozzi and all the others. Just to be included with the names of people like that is just mind-blowing to me, but I'm super grateful and humbled. Thanks, Cindy. I mean, I've known her so long. We raced together so long ago, and it's just been cool that our friendship has stayed over time, and I appreciate it.
Just one thing to remember, there's a reason why you're standing up there on the stage when it comes time at Sebring. I'm just saying, there's a hardcore reason you're there. So just remember that.
Thank you.
As racing drivers, if there were one aspect of your job, of your work, that right now you could get rid of, you could offload it on somebody else, you could hire somebody else to do it, what would it be?
I bet you all of us are going to say the exact same thing.
Say at the same time.
I'm kind of going on a limb saying that. It is truly just the hunt for money. It's just the sponsorship. It's working, it's not only maintaining your relationship with your current sponsors, but it's putting the feelers out, for the next couple of years to see what's going on. And, it's part of the sport too, which we get, but sometimes it gets difficult to pick up the phone sometimes and do those cold calls or to do whatever and just trying to do that. So for me, that would be if I could delegate to somebody and give them that wonderful task, that would be my personal one.
Agreed.
I second that, but I'm going to say social media. I'm going to hire Michelle to do my social media, bro. It is a full time. I'm like, I'm done. Track, I'm trying to take pictures, do video, upload song. I can't. I'm going to hire her for my social media. I'm done.
Yeah, and I'm with Amy on that. Social media, I'll farm that out right away.
So time consuming for me sometimes.
Very.
And it's almost embarrassing. You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, it's not only the time sucker. Yeah, I don't know. I think the whole concept of
that's a whole other panel.
I don't know. Cindy's got some pretty funny posts, though. I enjoy them.
yeah.
They're
Well,
pretty good.
I'm not going to say I take credit for that, but I don't know. I do the bloopers, there's one thing I have plenty of blooper reels on my deal and, but it's whatever. It is what it is.
Amy, I'm happy to help anytime.
Yeah. When you're not busy doing your own thing, sure.
I'm glad you guys opened the door for our third segment here, where we're going to talk a little bit more about the business of racing itself. And so this is for all of you, but let's start with Erin again, because she's been quietly kind of absorbing all this Trans Am data and taking it in and hopefully being influenced by you guys. When you were starting out, because everybody's got to start somewhere. And in this case, this conversation is centered around female drivers. And Trans Am, like I've noticed in sprint racing, has a lot of female drivers in it, which is commendable. It's absolutely amazing. I'm like, wow, I wish more disciplines would get with the program. But when you guys were coming up, who was your inspiration? Who did you look up to, male or female drivers? And who was your role model? What kept you going and what brought you in outside of, the things that we talked about earlier, your family and opportunity and stuff like that?
Well, I have an interesting one that is not actually, she was not a sports car racer. She was a racer, though. My dad did some offshore powerboat racing in his youth. He was a navigator for a number of different teams. And for 2 seasons, he raced with Betty Cook, who won national championships, and they called her the grandmother of offshore powerboat racing. And, there was always this talk about like, oh, what is she doing out here and everything. So I kind of grew up around with this idea of like, yeah, there aren't very many of us out there, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. And my dad always had that belief that, that we were equally capable. And so I guess that's kind of family, but not really. But she was kind of my idol as far as growing up and understanding that I could be that if I wanted to be.
Mine is my mom and my dad. Mine is just family because I watched my mom. She was autocrossing and back then they had separate classes. So you had female class and male, but they would post everyone's times. So you'd look over in the females, half the females were beating all the males' times. The group of people that I were around was, everybody and their wives and coming out, and they would go out and do one lap, get a time, and Tire Town Corvette Club, and just watching those different Corvette clubs meet and race like that. It was basically my mom and dad, and she would put down fastest time of the day all the time, sometimes overall, sometimes. So I'd have to go with my parents. And then, of course, I watched racing growing up, the Indianapolis 500 and all those things, and, all the big names and stuff, but I would definitely go with my parents.
Cindy, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same with my family, even though, they're not able to come out to the track as much anymore and stuff. My dad is 94. He'll be coming to a couple of our races this year. But I think they just really instilled the can-do attitude. If you want it bad enough, you'll figure it out, and if it takes figuring out from the business side. I came from a family of automotive dealerships. Let's just say when I first started racing, and I raced the same manufacturer that which one of our dealers, and so I thought, just because my name happened to be the same on the wall of the dealership, that I can get free parts on my parts bill account. Well, at the end of the year, I got a call from the creditors, and my dad turned me into collections because my bill was so high. And at the time I was mortified. I was ticked. I was mad. I'm like, Dad, you just turned me into collections. But I'm just telling you, that was the biggest gift that he gave me. Don't take anything for granted. You got to figure it out like business and so forth. And so, yeah, I just say, my family instilled the ethics. But, the one day that I did pick up the phone and actually did reach out to somebody, it actually was Janet Guthrie. And I was relatively new. And she was so accommodating and so helpful. She didn't know me from Adam. I could have been, trying to sell Avon or something on the phone to her or something. It was just, but she took the time and bottom line, she just flat out said, you got to win and you got to produce and you got to win races to move on in your career. Now, how you get there, that's up to you to figure out, whether it's business, the right cars and so forth. But she just says, you need to go win races. You need to work on yourself and the cars to go out there and be successful. And I just kind of took that to heart. And so, time to put my big girl panties on and go figure it out.
Michelle, how about you?
Yeah, that's an easy and a hard one for me. I got into racing because of my older brother. He was a go-karter, and I always wanted to be just like my brother. And his name is on my shirt. Unfortunately, he was killed by a drunk driver in 2023. And so I've lost that, and man, he was my idol. I loved everything he did, and he was so fast. He was in the first Red Bull F1 driver search when he was 15 years old. He was the youngest driver in that, won multiple championships of go-karting worldwide, was the first driver to be sponsored by Rel, which is a very well-known chassis in the go-kart world. And so, yeah, my brother. And although he didn't directly support my racing, he didn't really like me racing because he felt like I took it away from him and my dad. So it was a struggle when he was here because all I wanted to do was race with my brother my whole life. I did get to do it 2 months before he was killed, and that was really, really cool. And so, yeah, he's always has been my inspiration. And what's really kind of neat is I recently bought a Mazda Miata that he was racing, and I am now campaigning that car locally at my local racetrack. And so it was one of his favorite cars. That's really special to me. And it's kind of neat because I can still chase his lap times to this day in a car that he raced. And so I love my brother and I miss him very much.
Do you guys ever think about this from the other side of the coin? And what I mean by that is being conscious of the fact that you're in a position of being somebody's role model right now. My 10-year-old daughter is looking at Amy and Cindy and Michelle and Aaron and going, how do I become a race car driver like them? This is super cool. I'm going to paraphrase something that Lynn always says from WIMNA, which is, if you can see it, you can be it. And so you guys are the see it right now. Let's say my daughter walked up to you and said, why race? Why do this? Why should I become part of this family? What would you say to her?
Ask her, do you like play basketball, or do you play tennis, or do you play what sports do you like? I mean, in essence, motorsports is a sport. You know, it's not necessarily a stick and ball sport, but it's a sport. It's a team sport. And so I try to equate it a little bit to that and just kind of say everything is doable. But I think the biggest thing, you know, Eric, when I've gotten to the point lately, probably in the last 5 or 6 years of my career is, and I know Aaron and Amy and Michelle are the exact same way, is that you just have to stop and take the time. If you see someone over there shy, you know, but they're looking at your car, or they're watching you get out of the car, or they're just holding their mom's hand or dad's hand, you know, but you can tell their eyes are, just take the time, stop what you're doing and just go over and just chat. You know, and I just tell people, and again, if I can do this sport, trust me, and it truly is, anybody can do this. It just depends on how bad they want it. But it's no different from stick and ball. It's no different than any other sport that these kids are playing at, 7 or 8 years old now.
It takes a lot of hard work and dedication. And, I try to take the time with the fans at the track. And I've known some of these kids. I've been in it so long now, I hate to say, that I've seen them grow up, that they've been my fans, and then, they're giving me a Beanie Baby. I still have a Beanie Baby strapped in my car, the little green Lucky Bear that this kid gave me, and still in my car today. And the kid's like 15 or 18 years old now. He still comes to the track sometimes.
It's cool.
You have to take the time and appreciate that people are taking the time out to watch you, pay attention to you, and, enjoy it. And also, I just tell that not everybody has to be the driver either. There's so many opportunities now on several aspects of the whole team, from engineering to social media now, and data and truck driving and mechanics. I mean, a lot of girls are involved with that now. I think the opportunities over time have increased for the females to get involved. So I tell them, if you don't want to be a driver, there's a lot of other things you can do in motorsports. There's a lot of opportunities out there.
Just like Amy said, I always even take it a step further, where I just really think that a lot of times when I was being raised, no one wanted me to be a race car driver. That was not a viable thing. It was like, be a lawyer, be a doctor, go to school, make a lot of money, and then be a race car driver. And so I always take a step back, and I kind of try to tell people, like, no matter what your passion is, like, that's what you should do. Whatever you love doing, that's what you should commit all your time to do. I just feel like that's so important. And sometimes that message can be lost because of the people surrounding you telling you you should be doing something else, or maybe what you're doing is a waste of time. I can count on my fingers how many people that I loved and were friends of mine that told me, like, I could never race in Trans Am. Like, I was crazy. There's no way I could do it. And so surrounding yourself with people that believe in you, even maybe when you don't believe in yourself, is super important. And I think that's usually the message that I try to share with young fans or people that are trying to do something, whether motorsport or not. When they need that extra push, it's like, I feel like if you have a passion for something and you really want to do it, why do something else? It's an honor to always be considered a role model for boys or girls or whomever, but I just wish people would continue to follow the things they love, because I think a lot of times they stray from that. And I think we'd have so much more success in the world if people just followed what they were drawn to, and I'm just so grateful I've been able to kind of chase my dream for so long and be in Trans Am. And I think being a role model is just something that all of us don't really acknowledge all the time, but we definitely all are. Amy was a huge one for me. I have followed Amy for a really long time, and when I got to meet her the first time, I was so stoked. And so Trans Am's just a great paddock for that too.
Do you think that's one of the reasons, this access that the fans have and are able to talk to you and see you and get encouragement, is one of the reasons why that it's doing such a great job with rates of women's participation?
Maybe. I always like the girl dads too, because the girl dads take their daughters and they come to the races, you know what I mean? And so I think that it's just a culmination of things. Being able to see a woman in every category of the Trans Am races is really great, but you see that as well in other sports too. I mean, you can look at ARCA, you can look at NASCAR, you can look at the SRO that Aaron does. There's a ton of women in that too. So I think it's just things are slowly changing, and it's great to see.
And Aaron, talking about what series are doing right, what is SRO doing right?
I think they're making a lot of the same efforts I've heard ladies in Trans Am talk about in terms of drawing fans in, all fans, but they've certainly, always made an effort to come interview the women on pit lane, especially if we're doing well, to really highlight that. I think the outreach is definitely there. Personally, that's been very important. Everybody was talking about mentorship, and it's something I've been incredibly cognizant of from the very beginning, because I do think that there were very few role models for those of us on this call getting started that were women. And there was a lot of varying levels of different kind of talk, like, oh, that's cute that you want to go racing, and it's like, well, I don't know why I can't be taken seriously just because I have long hair and some other things that are different. But I think it's been very important for me to make sure that everyone knows that this is their space, whether they're male or female, old or young. A lot of times at the track, we would do garage tours, and the little boys would come up and touch the car, jump in the car and look in the car. And the girls would hang back in the corner of the garage or the corner of the tent until I came up to them and said, hi, I drive this race car. Do you want to come sit in it? You could tell they didn't feel like it was their space until someone invited them in. And so that's always been incredibly important to me, to make sure I'm doing my part to invite other women in, because I don't want them to have that voice in their head that, oh, it's just cute that you think you can do that, because it's so much more than that. We're so capable. We're looking at 4 women here, which fortunately right now is only a drop in the ocean. And the number of women has increased exponentially, I think, in the last couple of years that are in racing across all kinds of disciplines of racing. So, to see 4 of them here, I think just getting that message out is so incredibly important. And social media, as much as I deplore it, really helps with that too.
So I've met some of you at Women with Drive Summit, and I know some of you work a lot with WIMNA. I want to talk generally about if you could offer what your role is in the organization, those of you who work with the group, just to clarify for everybody, but also why increasing participation for women is actually important for motorsport overall. Why is it important for growth for everybody?
Well, I think it's a super important fan base that hasn't been tapped entirely yet. There are a lot of followers that when they see someone that looks like them are a lot maybe more likely to follow along. I've had many people comment on my social media that they weren't interested in racing until they saw me doing it. And then they thought, oh, well, maybe there is something here for me. Maybe this is something that's relevant for me and that I should pay more attention to and maybe even will enjoy. Yeah, I think from that perspective, it's incredibly important.
Yeah, the women organization, the Women in Motorsports North America, is a good organization. I've actually been fortunate enough to be one of the founding board of directors for that organization. And when we first came together and we started talking about this, we were kind of like, well, it's not just for drivers. That was my biggest thing, is I want to make sure this is across the board. So basically, honestly, it's just, it's a group of community of professionals that we're just trying to open up opportunities for everybody to learn about. And it's just a matter of education. It's a matter of just connecting people. It's a matter of it's such a variety and such a safe environment. This organization has absolutely exploded over the last 2.5 years. But it's due to a lot of hard work behind the scenes, and it's only going to get stronger. But the part that I really like about it is not just focusing on drivers. It's kind of everything that has to do from series to racetracks to TV, broadcasting, everything. And it's not just for females. It's all inclusive for men as well. And this year at the summit, right before the PRI, our 4th summit, we had over 600 people attend. And it's huge over the growth over the last couple of years. And the cool thing about it was the increase in men that's attending, promoters, managers, some folks that come from Europe that were there, and so it was something where I'm very proud of. At first I was a little bit, I don't want to say leery, but I was just kind of like, what is this really but the people behind the scenes and the people we have running it right now are really taking it to a different level and really opening it up to, and I mean, even Aaron sees it, because women is very heavily involved with the SRO, very heavily with a lot of other racing organizations, as well as Trans Am or SVRA, but they're now connecting with universities and racetracks and broadcasting teams. And so I've learned a lot about my business, not only from the motorsports side, but I've had doors open up for me now in other aspects of motorsports that wouldn't have happened. And so anyway, that's kind of how my involvement with it, and it's pretty special. It really is.
I attended the summit in 23 for the first time when it was at Phoenix, and Yeah, it was a great networking event. There was a lot of people involved and a lot of seminars to join, and so they were spreading a lot of information. That was really cool. I made some good connections there, but I think it's great to have several organizations that help bring awareness to women in motorsport and try to help raise funding. Aaron and I are part of Shift Up Now, and it's an amazing organization that has directly impacted my ability to race in the most competitive equipment that I can get into. So there's a lot of things changing in our sport, which is for the better, I feel. And yeah, I'm honored to be a part of it on every aspect that I can.
Cindy, you brought up something that we call here the autosphere, right? All the different jobs and careers and people that it takes to keep this whole circus going. My next question actually dovetails off of a question from our crowd. So Joe Schill writes, how would you encourage more young women to get involved with motorsports? And what are the career paths for those various jobs? And we talk a lot about women in STEM, and we need to expand that now to STEAM, right? Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, because art plays a big part in the autosphere as well. We talked about the newbies of driving age or of racing age that want to get into Trans Am and SRO and things like that. But what about the young ladies or young men out there that want to get into the autosphere? Again, there's a million jobs, but what's a good path to get into motorsport?
To be honest with you, you can have such a varied background to come into motorsports, from engineering to communication to financial, CPAs to, everything. And so there's really not a clear, that's the whole thing that's happened lately, is that it's not just driving. It's not just maybe the working on the cars. It's blossomed into this whole industry that's out there. And I don't want to say it's behind the curtain per se, but it's something to where honestly, I've seen people come in for attorneys coming in and helping out with contracts with teams or sponsors or, legal issues and stuff. And so there's really no path per se, is defined and stuff, but that's what makes it so cool. It's so open. It really is, the world of broadcasting right now is fascinating me, what's happening, in that regard, especially with live streaming versus on television and this and that and the contracts, and certain tire manufacturers have certain blimps flying over at the wrong time. And, it's a conflict of interest on certain, just everything. And so I think that if there's just an interest and you have a good general business background, or just any type of passion, there's a role in motorsports for you. I promise you that.
Okay, so let's refactor this question a little bit then. It is very wide in terms of depth and breadth. Taking social media management off the table. Sorry, Amy, you can't use that answer again. Let's just say you needed somebody today to help you on your race team to be successful in the 2025 season. What kind of backgrounds, skills, or previous careers are you looking for that would be beneficial to help manage your team and make it successful?
Mine would be a sports agent. I need someone to help me raise money.
Facts. That's true. I mean, if you're talking team specific, obviously you check all the boxes with engineering, data, marketing, mechanic, truck driver, tire engineer. And then you go into the other aspects of, you have accounting, legal, sponsorship. So, I mean, there's so many boxes to check. I mean, it really just takes a whole team, and we have the easy part. I get to drive the race car. That's the easiest job there is over there compared to some of these other ones. I mean, if I get into an altercation, the guys are the ones sitting there fixing it all night, or if we have a motor problem, the engine guy is fixing it. So it's so all encompassing as an industry from the team perspective, an owner's perspective, a driver's perspective. Everybody has roles. So if you know your role, if you're good at math, if you're good at engineering, if you're good at arts and you want to be a graphic artist and design race suits, you could do that. I mean, there's so many possibilities. And if you just like a little bit of racing, I'm sure, like Cindy said, there is definitely a spot for you in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would love to work with a retired CEO, or a retired person that thinks outside of the box, that maybe is not even in sports, possibly. Because you're looking for that advantage of being different. You're looking for that advantage of trying to help not only be a good leader, but to give people the tools in your business to do their jobs. And so I live about 4 miles away from Nike headquarters here in Portland, Oregon. And I've worked with a lot of the different folks there. And one of the coolest things about it when I was starting in motorsports is I tried to use a lot of their methodology and a lot of their ideas from other sports over there. And I incorporated that into my motorsports. So I would love to work with someone that had almost no racing experience, but general business experience on how to develop relationships or how to run a company or how to do the financial or whatever. I'm just craving to learn new stuff and to try new ideas, to stand out and to make our business better.
Looking at the future and the future of a sport being for everybody and for growing, we're talking men, women, people from lots of different backgrounds. And from your perspective, currently in the sport, is there something crucial we're overlooking about widening the talent pool? So that way there are more people coming in at the ground level and coming up through the ranks.
I think the talent pool is getting wider for sure. I mean, younger, if you ask me. Like everyone's coming in is super young. I mean, Trans Am had a couple, they were like, one kid was like 13 years old wanting to drive. So I had to put some stops on it and try to go for more 15, 16. But I think the talent pool is just wide open now. And I think it's just across Europe, across the United States. You have karting. I mean, you got circle track. I talked to so many people. They're like, oh, I got my grandson. He's running, circle track. We got him a little quarter midget or whatever. I don't know all these, but there's so many series throughout that I just think everyone's coming from everywhere. You can find racing just about everywhere now.
After 60 years of Trans Am, coming from the early days of Mark Donohue and Roger Penske, like we were talking about, up until now and all of its evolution, what are you guys hearing about the future of Trans Am? How is it evolving? Is it growing? Are they going to do like NASCAR did and do a Trans Am event in the UK or somewhere in Europe? What's going on with Trans Am?
I definitely think it's growing. I mean, TA2 has taken off for sure. They're also trying to grow the TA class again, and a lot of the XGT and GT series are allowing different cars or so many different cars now to come in. We've had new ownership in Tony Perella and Motorsports Holdings, and he's done such a great job with SVRA and then when he bought Trans Am and just really giving us a social platform to be on live stream and be on TV, on MAV TV. The exposure is so much higher than it used to be. We have promotion at the track. We have ticket sales. You can buy online now. They promote us. The direction, we have a new president in Andy Lally that just signed with us this year. I'm interested to see how that's going to go. He's a great race car driver. I've been friends with him. We grew up going through the ranks together and going our separate ways, but we always remained friends. And I'm super excited. I think from a driver's perspective, as the president of Trans Am, I think he could bring a lot of insight to that. So I'm super excited to see if they do a lot of different things with that. I know Tony has a new ownership group on board, so I think we may get some more exposure yet as far as hopefully sponsorship for the series goes. There's a lot of levels and different directions we're going. I think 2025 is shaping up to be super interesting.
I mean, Amy just pretty much just summed it up. I mean, honestly, it's only going up. You just got to ride the wave and you just got to be a part of it and so forth. But I think there's some good people behind the scenes, and I think there's some good people promoting it. There's some good people on the technical side. I feel more encouraged. I think there's a lot more positivity on it and so forth. And so I think it's really cool.
Well, since we're speaking of futures, let's talk about personal futures, starting with Michelle. So what's next?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I do not have enough funding to race in Trans Am. Still really working on it. Unfortunately, my title sponsor got bought out by Dr. Pepper. And so with the acquisition happening over the off season, my program is in the air. Unfortunately, Lucas Oil is no longer supporting me, and they were a big part of my program. And I've had a few other of my partners that have been with me for 10 years pull out. So I don't know what the future is for me. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to commit to a team this year, and I am on the hunt for money, and I've been on the hunt since August of last year in a full-time way, and it's just for some reason not coming together for me. And not to end on a bummer note on my program, there'll be some news that will be announced in the next few weeks that I'm excited about, and it has to do with Dirtfish Rally. So that's kind of exciting, kind of a new thing for me, but I'm also heading to Wisconsin to do some ice driving in a couple weeks, so that'll be fun.
Cindy, you're coming off a recovery after a surgery. You're back in the car this year. What else is lined up for you?
Yeah, it's kind of, maybe Michelle, I kind of went through something last year that maybe but it wasn't, sponsor related, but it was mentally the same thing being out of it. But no, we're back at it. We're just hustling right now. We're trying to go testing here in a couple of weeks up here in the Pacific Northwest, which we're trying to deal with weather. But anyway, so we're pretty excited on that regard. So yeah, we're going to get back in the seat this year and start rallying up. We don't know if it's going to be a 1, 2, or 3 car program just yet. So we're trying to figure that out. But in many ways, I'm more excited just, again, not only from the competition and the level and so forth, but the social aspect of just seeing everybody I haven't seen for a little bit. Yeah, I just crave being in the race seat. I just can't stand it. It's my happy place.
Amy, what about you? What's next?
2025 is going to look a little similar to what I've been doing. My longtime sponsor, McNichols Company, will be with us again, and Valley Automotive Group out of Ohio. So we're excited about that. We'll be running the McNichols 23 Valley Chevrolet Corvette again. Made a lot of aero changes. We've been lacking in grip, so hopefully we'll be able to keep up with the Mustangs and the Camaros. So I think a lot of our aero changes, we got to do the test in January in Sebring and had some good results with that. So we're going to try to do the national program again, try to do one more shot for that title and see if we can get it going again. But yeah, I'll be mainly in Trans Am.
So, Aaron, after listening to all of these wonderful stories about Trans Am and what it's like to be there, is something like Trans Am attractive for you? Does it require you to reboot yourself in order to go from one sanctioning body to the other?
I think it would take a reboot. It seems to me, especially if I was to go to TA2 with the tube chassis car, I would imagine that it's like learning a whole new beast. If they're so much lighter, so much more horsepower. I think it would be super fun, and I would love to drive one. I definitely wouldn't say no if someone asked, but I think it would be a learning experience for sure.
Do you think Trans Am's intimidating? It's filled with almost 60 years of history where, like we talked about in the intro, these fire-breathing dragons, all this noise and kind of insane, a little bit Wild West. Do you think that attracts more people to it, maybe deters people from it, going like, I don't know if I want to play in their sandbox?
Depending on where you're racing in the grassroots world and what you're racing, I think it would have seemed intimidating to me at the time. The step that Michelle took would have seemed very intimidating. And I think I would have needed a push like what she had to try it out. I think now it would seem less intimidating for me, having driven some much faster cars than what I drove at that time. I would imagine it draws the fans in because, again, like you talk about, NASCAR, everybody loves it because it's this American tradition. And I think TA2 and Trans Am are, whether it's the Corvettes and, that still look like a sports car, or whether it's the tube chassis, I think that good old American muscle and the Viper and all of those cars that have a lot of fan appeal, I think, and have a lot of history of fan appeal. Like I said, just the noise that they make is so, to anyone who likes that kind of adrenaline rush that you get, is so attractive because unfortunately, a lot of our modern sports cars are going turbocharged and losing a lot of that sound. So, we go to the racetrack now and we're like, oh, it's not that loud out here. And I think that's a lot of the appeal personally. So yeah, I think that Trans Am is I love that it still has that tradition. I think that's attractive.
All right, ladies, we've reached that part of the episode where we like to invite our guests to share any shout-outs, promotions, or anything else we haven't covered thus far. So, Michelle, go ahead. Take us home.
I'm just very thankful for you guys. Thanks for having us on and letting us chat a bit about Trans Am and kind of our places in the sport. Congrats to Amy again. And Cindy, good luck to you this year. I'm very excited to watch you guys. And hopefully I'll be out there, but we have to wait and see. So thank you guys so much.
If your audience hasn't had a chance to check out Trans Am, definitely check it out. They're on the Facebook, Instagram. They just announced a new live streaming this year with a different company. I think we'll be on MAV as well. And just take the time, check us out. You can visit my webpage, rumenracing.com. All the social media platforms, same thing, rumenracing.com. Check out our sponsors, McNichols Company and Valley Automotive Group. Watch out for all the Hall of Fame festivities starting in a couple weeks at Sebring, the Trans Am opener. They're going to have all of that. So we're excited to do that. And I appreciate everybody's support. And thank you for having us on and giving us this platform.
These podcast interviews, or whatever we're calling it these days, they're always fun when you kind of start talking about certain things. You can kind of share a few stories. But the most important thing is we're accessible. If anybody has any questions they want to send us, there's so many different ways of hooking up with us these days. We're here to help. We've been in those shoes of people starting off or better yet, just inquiring about certain things, but here to help. We're here to help each other. It's a crazy time in the world, and the most common thing is motorsports is just one of the best sports ever, and it's truly a team sport.
Before I turn it over to our title sponsor, and we have several sponsors for this new series, our Virtual Center Conversations, I wanted to turn the microphone quickly over to one of our ACO representatives, who is also a first in the world of female motorsports. That's Margie Smith-Haas, the first American woman to run the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Thank you guys so much and for the recognition. As I mentioned, I didn't find out about being the first woman to drive the 24 Hours of Le Mans till 29 years after I did it, because I didn't do it to be the first. I did it because I just love to race. And congratulations, Amy. I've watched you guys as I've been racing, and I won my championship in the American City Racing League, as you probably know, raced there at Portland. And, Cindy, I remember seeing you up in the Portland area and PPG stuff. I'd always come over and say hi to you. But, I just want you all to know how much I am so proud of what you've done and how you strive for your future goals and how you encourage and are a inspiration for the young ones coming up, because we were there looking up at some of the people and what they had to say to us and encourage us. Again, it's just I would have never ever as a school teacher thought that I'd end up being the first woman in North America to win a professional road racing championship. That happened in 94. I was 44 years old then, so wasn't a good time to try to get into higher levels of racing right then. But again, I wish you guys the best and how you encourage all these new drivers. You're just amazing role models. And I was looking up all your wins and podiums and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are great. I'm so proud to be part of a group such as yours.
Thank you.
With that, a word from our title sponsor, the International Motor Racing Research Center.
I just want to take a couple minutes and thank all of you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to be part of this. I have found the last hour enlightening, fascinating, interesting, and I hope our viewers did as well. Amy, again, congratulations on induction into the Hall of Fame, which the Trans Am Hall of Fame is ultimately going to be located in the International Motor Racing Research Center in Watkins Glen. So if any of your listeners or viewers are in Watkins Glen at any time this current season, please stop in and say hi. On behalf of all of us and also our partners at SAH, we thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I think this has been a wonderful kickoff to what we anticipate are going to be 3 more presentations dealing with different disciplines of the sport. Thank you very much. We're indebted to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on behalf of everyone here and those listening at home, thank you, ladies, for sharing your stories with us.
What an incredible conversation with 4 of the most inspiring women in motorsports. These powerhouses prove that speed has no gender. Their stories remind us that the road to success isn't always easy, but with perseverance and love, real love for the sport, anything is possible. So a huge thank you to you for participating. It was a privilege for me to meet you, and y'all inspire the next generations. And we thank you for that too.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation and look forward to more center conversations throughout the season. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and stay with us for more incredible discussions from the world of motorsports. And until next time, keep the wheels turning and the throttle wide open.
Thank you, guys.
Women in Motorsports North America is a not-for-profit organization that began in 2022. Known as WIMNA, it is a community that focuses on advancing, connecting, and enabling with its many partners, including industry executives, drivers, team members, OEM sponsors, racetracks, and more. WIMNA welcomes all who share their passion for motorsports. The Women in Drive Summit continues its mission to bring together motorsports professionals. This unique event offers new pathways for individuals to explore career opportunities, discuss current industry challenges, and provides mentorship and resources for future growth in the industry. If you'd like to stay informed about WIMNA and the Women in Drive Summit, be sure to log on to www.womeninmotorsportsna.com or follow them on social media at Women in Motorsports NA on Instagram and Facebook.
This episode is brought to you in part by the International Motor Racing Research Center. Its charter is to collect, share, and preserve the history of motorsports, spanning continents, eras, and race series. The center's collection embodies the speed, drama, and camaraderie of amateur and professional motor racing throughout the world. The center welcomes serious researchers and casual fans alike to share stories of race drivers, race series, and race cars captured on their shelves and walls and brought to life through a regular calendar of public lectures and special events. To learn more about the center, visit www.racingarchives.org. This episode is also brought to you by the Society of Automotive Historians. They encourage research into any aspect of automotive history. The SAH actively supports the compilation and preservation of papers, organizational records, print ephemera, and images to safeguard, as well as to broaden and deepen the understanding of motorized wheeled land transportation through the modern age and into the future. For more information about the SAH, visit www.autohistory.org.
We hope you enjoyed another awesome episode of Break Fix Podcast, brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or get involved, be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Grand Touring Motorsports. And if you'd like to learn more about the content of this episode, be sure to check out the follow-on article at gtmotorsports.org. We remain a commercial-free and no annual fees organization through our sponsors, but also through the generous support of our fans, families, and friends through Patreon. For as little as $2.50 a month, you can get access to more behind-the-scenes action, additional pit stop minisodes, and other VIP goodies, as well as keeping our team of creators fed on their strict diet of Fig Newtons, gummy bears, and Monster. So consider signing up for Patreon today at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. And remember, without you, none of this would be possible.